And how will you get to the other end, to sit at the other end of your mat? Go slow. How do you get there? How do you move across the ground? So yes, you can crawl, you can pelvis shuttle, sideways, backwards, roll. Yep. Cat-like. So now you're changing around your mat, moving around your mat. So now I'm going to ask you to make a transition and find your comfortable position again, your mobile position. Part of me has a little reluctance to say comfy because I imagine my really nice leather lounge chair in front of the fire and where gravity turns up, you know, a few notches, and so it's harder to move. So it's, when I say comfortable, I'm talking about those criteria, all right? So you're going to go from one comfortable position where you're mobile, your spine's long, your head's free. How do you get to another? Different orientation on your mat. Any position. So often what we see is people forget themselves. You know, you're asked to move to the head or the feet or the shoulder. And all of a sudden, the feet are like the trajectory, the target on the moon, and the journey between is forgotten. And all these ATMs that you're doing, moving over the ground, using the ground, organizing yourself differently in spirals, arcs, circles, they can serve you right now as you begin, you know, in the beginning of this process. So play with it a few minutes. Play, changing your own. You could pretend you've got a person on your mat now. Not yourself. Another person. You're another person. And that you're going to move around your mat and keep on coming back to that position, that organization. That's not a static position, but it's a place where you have a dynamic mobility to move easily in any direction with light arms, a long spine, and your head free, where your pelvis and your head can relate to one another and not become fixed in a set relationship. Where does your breathing figure into this? And when you've had enough, you can lie on your mat and rest. And now, yes, Martine, I would have done that. I know I would have done that. So notice how you're sensing yourself now. Your contact with the floor. And think for a moment, actually begin to roll your head. Roll your head a little to the right, a little to the left, Or maybe you like to go a little right and back, a little right and back, a little more right and back. Pause and then to the left. So why do we so often include rolling the head in scans at the beginning of an ATM, in reference movements, in standing? Why is it? Any thoughts? How come? What's the...
It's a good impression of the availability of the rest of the body.
Connect with the head? In standing?
In standing, lying. In standing, you mean?
Well, I'm hearing, so Simon's saying to give you a sense of the connectivity of the head with the rest of the body, and yes, you can get that in lying, but it's much more refined to be able to sense that in lying. In standing, it's easier because you don't have the floor inhibiting your movement as a constraint with your weight straight down on it. So in standing, smaller base of support, you can sense that connectivity. So good comment. I would say easier in standing.
I think I find it easier in lying.
Uh-huh. So what are you sensing?
Just pelvis.
So could you roll your head? And what are you sensing in your pelvis?
My pelvis shifts.
Uh-huh. It responds. So you're rolling your head from your pelvis? Can you roll your head not from your pelvis? Great. So notice if you feel a shift in the way your pelvis relates to the ground, whether the pressure shifts from one side to the other as you roll your head. Now, how many other people feel that? Couple? Few? Three? More? Slowly, hands coming up. Okay, it's not so common in the general public for them to feel their pelvis moving because there's so many places that there are traffic jams all the way down, but it's absolutely the reason why. Because it is possible. Have you got a question, Anka? Okay.
Does it relate again to the big muscles in the pelvis, like to explore the head movement? If that's like, if I feel restriction, or like, does that relate to how tense the muscles are around the
Pelvis, it may. So Anka is curious about whether if she feels restriction in the turning of her head, whether it relates to stiffness and tightness and the way she's using her pelvis lower down. And yes, it absolutely can.
Two things. One, the cervical neck's the most movable bit, so I'd be thinking that would be a really, theoretically, easier. And the other thing, I stop thinking with my eyes. If I just get to be on the floor and moving my head.
So, sensing the mobile vertebra in the action of rolling your head and perhaps quietening the eyes. Anybody else?
The ability to feel that weight shift.
Mm-hmm.
To start with in terms of then giving some idea with pelvis later on.
Yes. So an easier place to feel the weight shift that could be related to later on, Emma's saying. And I go, it's a head massage? Yes? Okay. Bringing the eyes to a different orientation. And Anka's starting to hook into some of the, there's so many things you could connect with it.
Is the baby stuff as well? Because
It's everything.
yeah, okay.
You can, but in terms of our organisation, the structure of our skeleton is such that we can be vertical and we have the most mobile intelliceptors of any animal around our vertical axis. So here we've changed our orientation, and the way we roll our head may not be, strictly speaking, around the vertical axis, but it's implying that. So rolling our own head and neck and sensing through ourselves, or rolling someone else's head, can give a lot of information about the organization, whether they prefer to inhabit one part of the kinesphere, where their eyes are looking, the state of the relationship of their head to the rest of themselves. So it's a very important assessment tool, and Moshe began nearly almost every FI with rolling the head. There's more, but that's really good. So, could you bend your knees, stand your feet, find a place where you clearly feel the support of the floor, where your legs feel balanced and there's no unnecessary work to maintain them in that relationship. And again, roll your head a little. And what are you noticing as you roll your head? So for the moment, keep your knees vertical. It's not such a big movement. It's just feeling the weight of your head on the floor to begin with. And then allowing yourself to roll your head in one direction, the other, feeling the change in pressure across the back of your head, the pathway of pressure across the back of your head. Does it travel across the same part of your skull, the back of your skull on the right and the left? Does it travel as far? It's not about making it go further, but about noticing. Are you rolling your head in a way that you could do it all day and not have any consequences tomorrow? What are you doing with your eyes as you roll your head? So notice so you've noticed the contact of the back of your head. You imagine your nose in space. What pathway does your nose take? What trajectory does it have? Is it different on one side compared to the other? And if you think of an arc can have depth and it can have length, or the height of the curve. So you can notice whether you've got a wide, long, shallow arc on one side and it's a little more curved, deeper on the other. Whether your arc ends in a different relationship to your shoulder, to your neck, of your ear to the floor on one side than the other side. And then the lower jaw, which is not truly part of the skull, it may have another curious journey left and right. So you can get some information from it, but often we have little biases and deviations in our jaw through habits of holding more on one side that can confuse the orientation of our head a little, either when we're looking at someone or on ourselves. So often it's easier to think of, know the nose as part of your skull, still take into consideration your jaw. Okay, rest a moment. You can rest with your legs long, your legs bent, whichever's more comfortable for you. You can rest off your back for a moment if you want. Please come back to your back, bend your knees. Some of you have already explored this. Some of you may have explored it through DVD, and there's a few of you that haven't. So we're going to revisit again. So lie on your back with your knees bent. Could you bring your right hand to your forehead so that your palm is on your forehead and your fingertips are pointing somewhere to the left. Your elbow is somewhere where you just notice which direction your elbow is pointing in to begin with. And begin to roll your head with your hand so that your hand, arm, self is the driver and your head is the passenger. Actually change that for a moment. Can you let your head carry your hand? So roll your head just in one direction several times first. So you can either, it's the right hand on the head. Okay, let's go right hand on the head, roll your head to the right. But instead of rolling your head with your hand, can you roll your head so your head takes your hand and arm for a ride, just to the right? And breathe. Find out if it's possible to change. So instead of your head taking your hand for a ride, you can guide your head across the floor to the right. Observe how much contact you have of your hand with your head. So keep your knees quiet, pelvis quiet. Okay. Rest a moment. Bring your arm down, rest. Come back onto your back, bend your legs, bring your left hand to rest on your forehead. And then just rest there for a moment. Feel the weight of your hand. Can you feel the skin of your forehead? And then the tissues beneath that, not that there are, for most people, not that there's a lot of them, but there is a little. And then the bone, the shape of the bones underneath. So when you're ready and you've really connected with through your tissues, your skin, your muscle, bone, it's not that you're tightening or tensing your hand anymore to feel a bone, but it's sending your attention out to listen to the texture, the possibilities of the shapes underneath. And begin to take your hand and arm for a ride by rolling your head to the right and then back to the middle. If your eyes are open, can you close them? If your eyes are closed, can you open them and just see, does it make any difference? So notice now as you roll your head, are you rolling your head a different distance? Rest a moment. Bend your knees, stand your feet. Bring your right hand to your forehead again. And just notice how you connect with yourself. How you contact your forehead with your hand. How you form that relationship, whether you can give the weight of your hand to your head, feel the skin, tissue, bone. Notice the direction of your elbow, the direction of your fingers, and whether your wrist is bent or straight. And then gently, slowly, take your right arm for a ride to the left and back. Go slow enough that you can sense whether the power for the movement is coming from the musculature of your spine, base of your head, muscles that join the thorax to the vertebra of the neck. And then, can your right hand roll your head to the left? And your head be a passenger or passive as possible. For most of us, it's very difficult to give up the work of our musculature around our neck. Could you keep your right hand on your head, bring your left hand behind your neck from the left side, and contour your hand to the back of your neck. So your fingers are on one side, the heel of your hand is on the other side. And could you, it's a tricky thing to find, but you're wanting to feel the work in the muscles of your neck. So your intention is to be active with your head and roll your head to the left. But kind of don't give the full muscle power to the movement. So you feel a little bit of tension develop. And then you come back to the middle. So your right hand's going along for the ride, and let it go. Do it a couple of times till you get the sense of what that feels like in your hand. Sometimes it helps to tense your jaw a little bit, or press your head a little bit into the floor, or push your left ear towards your left shoulder as you're trying to roll it, just so you feel the change in shape of your neck that happens when your musculature becomes active. Then keep your hand there and find out if it's possible to keep your neck soft and guide your head in this rolling motion through the movement, action of your right arm. Okay, and rest a moment. Take your hands away, rest. Roll your head a little left and right. Notice what it's like. Please bend your knees again. Bring your left hand to your forehead. Take a moment to form that relationship of connection between your left hand and your forehead. And just notice, what are you doing with your hand? Does your hand conform to the shape of your forehead? Does it stay like melted cheese and your wrist bends, or does it stay more like a flat, soft shape with your wrist straight? And then roll your head a little to the... Which way are we going? Right? Yes, to the right, and come back to the middle. Try having your head be the active agent, and then your hand, arm, self be the active agent, and your head quiet. Okay, rest a moment. And could you bring your left hand behind your head and your right hand to your forehead? Bend your knees, stand your feet. So the back of your head is resting on the palm of your left hand, and your right hand is on your forehead. Could you begin to roll your head on the palm of your left hand? So it's probably going to be a smaller movement. And begin to notice more. What are you doing with your hand, your wrist, your shoulder girdle, and your ribs on the right side? I can see some people have done Julie's rolling the head lesson. How many people did it between segment? This between segment went over the rolling the head between the hands lesson. Okay, great, great. Okay, so we'll jump ahead in a kind of way. So there are 3 ways that you know that you've explored for rolling your head with your hand. One of them, your hand conforms to the shape of your head. Your wrist can be mobile, but you maintain that contact as you roll your head. You can also do that with a straight wrist, where your wrist doesn't bend or straighten. And then you can make your hand like a flat board where the contact point between your head and your hand continually changes. So that as you roll your head to the right, the pressure moves more towards the heel of your thumb, the base of your hand, and the left. With your right hand, as you roll your head to the left. And then as you roll your head to the right, the pressure rolls from your heel of your hand towards your fingers. So it's a constantly changing point of contact. Okay. Could you change hands? Put your right hand behind your head, your left hand in front. Begin to roll your head between with your left hand. And rest a moment. Change your hands. Bring your right hand to your forehead, your left hand behind your head. And begin to explore rolling your head between both hands. So both hands are contributing to the rolling, turning action of your head. As your head is rolled to the right by your hands, contact moves towards your fingertips of your right hand and the fingertips of your left hand. Back of your head is turning to the left, your nose is turning to the right. When you go to roll your head to the left, back of your head is going to the right, your nose is going to the left. So if you can, keep your wrists straight, your elbows to the sides, so that it truly comes from the power of your hands. And try it changing your hands. So right hand behind your head, left hand in front. So you hardly need to lift the head. If you slide the right hand to the left behind your head, then because of the contours of the shape of your hand, it will invite your head to roll. And I see a lot. So can you tell whether your head's active or passive? I see a lot of active heads. I can see muscles standing out on necks. So if you're thinking... Okay, rest. The art of self-deception. You know, our imaginations are so good. We can think we're doing something when we're actually not. Pretty clever. But then we can be deluding ourselves, unknowingly, innocently perhaps. And that's why we need to be vigilant. Listening, checking, sensing, questioning, feeling, observing, checking sensations within and without. Please roll yourself up to sitting. Sit with your feet in one direction and your knees in the other direction. Sole of one foot in front of the knee of the other, and bring one hand to the front of your head, one hand to the back of your head. And begin to use your hands to roll your head between your hands. So, right hand in front. If your right hand's in front, when you're turning to the right, does the distance between your elbows increase or decrease? And when you turn your head to the left, do the elbows come towards one another or away from one another? Can you continue to roll, or change your hands, sorry. So how are you doing this? You feel what's happening in your shoulder blade, between your shoulder blades and your spine? Does your pelvis know that you're rolling your head? Could you continue to roll your head left and right and change your legs to the other side without interfering with the movement of the rolling of your head? So maybe you do one movement per one change of the legs, or maybe you do 5 movements if you're doing a small turning of the head for one flip of the legs. But really try and identify. It doesn't matter if your head stops. What matters is if you don't notice it, if you don't sense what you did, where the mistiming or the coordination was, or that stopping of the breath. Okay, and rest a moment. Lie down on your back and rest. Can we have the balloons? One each. You could pass out balloons, just drop them by their heads. So in sitting, we've only done one hand in front, right? One hand behind. Did we do the right hand in front? Or did we do the left? Or have we done both?
Both.
Done both?
But
Okay.
we didn't change direct. We didn't change sitting before.
You didn't come back again in sitting?
No, we didn't. We changed. We did the changing sitting position.
Uh-huh.
With one hand in front. We didn't do it.
Ah, that's the thing. Okay. Please roll yourself up to sitting. And you thought there was something. See how your class can help you? So put the other hand in front of you, on your forehead. I think it's your left. And your right hand behind. And firstly, sense the contact. Can you somehow sense where your right hand is from your left hand? And when you begin to roll your head, can you feel between your hands that each hand knows what the other is doing? And how do you sense your central axis as you are rolling your head between your hands? Could you perhaps make some exploration in how you're doing it to see if you could sense that the turning happens really proximally through the center of your spine around that central axis. So it's not about how far left or right you go, but about that central axis, that all 24 vertebrae are communicating with one another while you roll your head between your hands. Of course, you can rest your hands when you need to. And then bring your hands back, same relationship, and begin to explore the possibility, while you roll your head, of shifting your legs over to the other side. Not interrupting your breathing. Not interrupting the rolling of your head right and left. Pausing whenever you need. Okay, please let it go. Lie on your back. Bend your knees. Roll your head a little right and left. Notice how you roll your head now. Notice the experience. So your head's not sliding on the floor, it's rolling on the floor. Rolling. Rolling. Rolling, not sliding. Rolling. So it's one point. There's a continuous line of pressure, shifting pressure across the back of your head. As opposed to, you know what you did? Okay. Okay. Please roll yourself up to sitting. And you'll find that the fairies have been. And it's somewhere on your mat or near you. There is a balloon. It's like the Easter egg hut. Hunt. Where is it? Where is it? So could you blow up your balloon? Just about head size will do. So it doesn't have to be a big head. But just, and then tie it. And then bring yourself to sit in a comfortable position, your comfortable position. Maybe it's different from before, but just find out. Put the balloon on the floor in front of you. The comfortable position you had with the mobile base and the free arms and the long spine and the availability. Obviously we need AKA type of language. Okay. So when you're, and we've nearly got everybody there. Could you bring one of your hands? Imagine that's someone's head lying in front of you there. Bring one of your hands onto the person's forehead so that your fingers are oriented. If it's your right hand, your fingers will be oriented to the left, fingertips to the left. If it's your left hand, your fingertips are going to be oriented to the right. Otherwise, you'll have your fingers in their nostrils or their eyeballs. You know, so it's okay. Find out. Can you still be comfortable? Are you still free to move, having made that contact? And what... We're getting some orientation features on some balloons now. So...
Are you talking about the neck?
Well, yes, that's the first cervical vertebra, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Or it could be the nose.
No.
Not now, no, but it could be the nose, if you change the orientation of the balloon, the head. Okay, so feel how your hand can contour to the balloon. Now lean on it a little bit, and see if you could gently, you know, popping balloons. So what's your idea of lean, you know? The shed's leaning, it's got a lot of weight in it, or, I'm just leaning subtly on the table. Can you feel the ground underneath? So you feel the top surface of the balloon, and then can you organize yourself in your X position to feel the floor underneath the balloon? And then if you wanted to stop this balloon from rolling, but not pop it, how much pressure would you use? You'd need a fair bit of pressure, wouldn't you? But there's a certain point where the pressure doesn't give you any further information. One, it can stop the head from rolling. And two, it just feels harder. You just meet the resistance that's there. The head's met the ground, your hands met their bones. Okay, so play with the amount of contact that you can roll the balloon left and right. Or maybe it's just left, or maybe it's just right. What direction does it feel easy for you here? Now, the more your wrist is bent, this is a mechanical fact, the more your wrist is bent, the more your power has to be deviated along the path through your skeleton. This is why working on the tables gets so much easier, because you can Oh, I thought I was getting cold. I need a serviette. I didn't wet myself. I didn't. So, this is can you use your pelvis? Find a way to use your pelvis. to guide your arms so that that power, and it doesn't need to be a lot, but that it's your pelvis that drives the movement in a subtle, Rolls-Royce-y kind of way through and up the length of your spine to your shoulder girdle, down through your arm to that head, that balloon. Have you got a free head? Is your head free? How long can your spine be? Maybe you need to adjust your position. Okay, pause. How fast were you rolling the head? Would you like your head to be rolled like that? We talked, how I was talking before about the head being ahead of, taking off ahead. Well, there's this heads going in every direction here now. Change hands. Change your position if you need to. If you feel like you want to make any adjustments. And can you remember the different contacts of the hand? One is that the hand's like, it contours and it stays that shape. A colleague of mine said like melted cheese. That's a good image. I like that image. Zoran, actually. Or you can keep this soft, flat hand where it's a continually changing place. And that looks like it's giving you more freedom. Can you feel how when you contour to the balloon, you're more likely to get stuck somewhere? Yeah? Okay, could you leave your balloons alone for a moment, and one person lie down in front of another person. And sit at their head. Sit at their head. So the person on the floor, could you bend your legs, stand your feet? The person at the head end, organize yourself to sit in your most comfortable way so that you have a mobile base. Your arms are free. You can bring your hand forwards to their forehead. But first of all, just watch them roll their head. Just observe them. So the person on the floor, let's roll your head a little. Yeah. And then pause. We'll do some more detail with this tomorrow or the next day. Pause. Now, the person who's sitting, could you bring one of your hands to their forehead to make contact? You're going to go along for the ride. Remembering how you organized yourself on the balloon, how that might help you. And negotiate the speed. If your partner is rolling their head too quickly, negotiate, okay? And if you have your legs long, leave them long. But I suggest having your legs bent. Makes the link between your pelvis and head a little easier.
Sliding, so it allows more ease of movement.
Sliding, do you mean? I don't remember sliding.
Rather than actually doing the knees,
Yeah.
you were like,
Yes, yes, yes,
do we do this in the circumstance?
yes.
Or, okay.
And if you can, you can try the different ways of using your hand. Feel the difference. Which one enables you to create an easier sense of rolling for the person you're following, or easier mobility and availability for you to follow them.
It's easier too.
And see if you can use your pelvis. Follow them with your pelvis. So your pelvis moves, your trunk moves, which comes through your hand.
Am I rolling well? I don't think I am rolling. It's like you're tilting.
You're a bit
your head
active. There will be tilting. There is.
I don't know. I don't know the difference. It's just like
We'll talk.
you roll on different axes.
That's turning.
That's
And
turning.
because you've got the resistance of the floor, that's frictional. So what will happen instead is rolling. So it creates some axial movement, but the top vertebra are actually turning.
Like this.
No, that's active. You're doing it.
This is it. This is
You,
okay.
so just roll your head across. That's it. That's it. Try your other hand. If you need to adjust your position, do so. That was very nice, Amanda. Catch her if you can. And you can ask her to slow down. You can also ask them to move in a smaller range.
Rather than actually getting just the right level of pressure on your hands.
Yeah. Ask her to slow down. Sheila.
Slow down?
Slow down and half the size.
Okay.
Immediately, Amanda starts breathing. Okay. Could you change roles? We're just going to briefly touch this today, develop it more. Good pickup. Change hands if you haven't already. Okay. Please finish up. You haven't done it once yet? Nick, Avatar. You can do it once. we'll take a 5-minute break and come back at 1:45 and do some ATM with a special guest.